So many people right now have the feeling that they're working so hard and yet just not getting ahead. And this is a trend or kind of a feeling, a sentiment that you see pervading throughout the world now, and certainly here in the UK. And when you go online, certainly on my time feed, I see a lot of these videos and reels about people really having a hard time. And it's definitely hard out here for many of us. But it had me thinking. About how did it get like this. And I know that the first kind of place that we like to point fingers is the government and the system and maybe our employers and the companies we work for and so on and so forth. And I think all these people have their part to play. But I was also thinking that this is really a bigger system at play that really starts from when we're young, because it starts in school and we're conditioned to follow instructions and follow the guidance of people who are in positions of authority and power, whether that's our teachers, the headmaster, parents, so on and so forth. And so we get conditioned to start responding to the things that people in authority say. And one of the authoritative messages that we get when we're younger is to do well in school, get a good education. And in getting a good education, then we'll be able to have a good life, earn some money and support our families and live a good life, be happy. It's the so-called American dream, or the British dream, so to speak, or the dream around the world, right? And to be fair, many of us will be happy probably with that, right? Just the ability to earn enough money where we can take care of our essentials, take care of our loved ones, and maybe sprinkle in a hobby or two or a holiday or two. And most people probably would be content with that. However, that's where it starts. Then you get into an education system, and once you leave secondary education and you start going on to your A levels and university, this is where it really gets you, because most of us at that point in time are not able to go and get a higher education without going into debt. And that's the first bit. That's the entry point to the work trap, because you then get riddled with debt, and then you have to then spend 3-4 years studying whatever thing that you're studying. And most people probably didn't get good guidance around what they should study in school or in uni. And then 3-4 years, 20, 30, 40, 50K in debt after. And now you've got to go into a labour market to try and now not only pay that debt off, but provide a living for yourself. And the cost of living in that time is just going to continue to rise and rise and rise. It doesn't take a rocket science then to see that eventually you're going to get on this treadmill and it's going to be hard to get off. And this is even before we've even factored in having children. Some people are able to manage to get on the property ladder, whether it's through their own hard work of saving a deposit or whether they benefit from being given some assistance through family members and so on and so forth. So either way. And so they have kids, they have student loan debt, they may even have some credit card debt. And before you know it now, you're on the hamster treadmill and it can be hard to get off. And then equally, the skill sets and the education that people invested in when they were younger weren't skill sets and education that had upward mobility for them. Many people find themselves in somewhat of dead-end jobs or jobs that they just, don't want to do. So in the end, all this hard work that we put in ends up seeming like I'm putting all this work in, but yet I'm not going anywhere. I'm working so hard, not even to stand still, but I'm regressing. And it's important to understand that we're in a system. We're in a system, and people say that the system is broken. The system's not broken. The system is working the way it was designed to work. What we need to do is find our way out of the system. The system is doing what it's supposed to do. It has its own agenda. It has its own objective. And their agenda and objective is not likely in line with yours and mine. So, what do we do? What do we do? Well, I can only give some insight into the things I've tried to do over the years. You know, I mean, we've seen people get side hustles, and again, this is part of working hard, so we're just trading our time for money. That is part of the problem, because people will trade time for money. It's not just time for money, but the energy, right? Most people then struggle to have the energy after work to do other things that might help them get out, whether it's to focus on their health and fitness so they have the energy, right, to then do more than just their work, or they're doing double shifts to make ends meet, but then they don't have the energy to work on a side, I don't like the word side hustle, but a project, a business, a venture that could leverage themselves out of the situation that they find themselves in, but don't do it. Because again, so it extracts the work trap essentially extracts our resources, our time, our energy, our effort, our money. And if once it happens, it's hard to get out. So I just want to say here, firstly, that you are not alone. Many of us have either gone through that situation or are going through that situation. And on this channel, I am looking to really kind of decode this system, firstly, because it's hard to escape a system that you don't understand. We need to understand the pitfalls of the system, how to avoid the mistakes so that we don't fall into those situations again, right? Because it's not just that. As I mentioned earlier, there are other aspects. These things have a knock-on effect on your relationships. You know, they put strain on your relationships, they put strain on your health, they put strain on your creativity, they put strain on your energy, they put a strain on so many things that it's a very interconnected system. It's not just one thing. And when we think it's one thing, it can blind us from taking the right actions and addressing the issues in the right way. So anyway, so there is the decoding of the system, but there's also how do we navigate it? How do we position ourselves to then navigate and be free from it? Now, I'm not going to be here saying to you or anyone else to say, you know, you've got to become an entrepreneur and all this kind of stuff. I also think that goes to the opposite extreme as well. I have done things like this, escape the rat race and whatever. And I used to have these messages. I used to believe that that was the way forward. And for me personally, yes, but I don't think that's for everyone. And I've come to appreciate that. A 9 to 5, let's go down this way. A 9 to 5, it has its role, it has its place. And we shouldn't bastardize it just because, you know, it has the connotations of being a wage slave and so on and so forth. That's really a mentality. What's really important is that we reclaim the resources that we have and we use our resources strategically, right? And in another video, I'm going to break that down. But we need to be aware of what our resources are, and we need to allocate our resources strategically so that we can, if not escape the system, we can certainly maneuver ourselves in a way that we don't feel bondage within the system, right? So, just to bring it back home here, the work trap, people feeling like they're working harder and harder, yet not getting ahead. People cannot, if you don't understand the system that you're in, it's going to be hard to escape the system. Working harder, as we should know, isn't going to get us out. Because working hard has not been many of our weaknesses, right? Hard, if all it had to do with was hard work, then we wouldn't be in this situation. So I don't want to sit and say we have to work smart, but we need to be able to position ourselves within the system so that we don't get tied down and pinned down like a hostage to fortune. And so, in another video, I will start, in future videos, I will begin to start to map out ways of how people can navigate the work trap, what I call it, the work trap, of basically working hard and not getting ahead. And the education system is where it starts. That gets you into debt. Most people then find themselves in a job or a field that they're not suited for. So that's the second part. They're not suited for the industry, whether they don't like it, whether they don't have the skill set for it, or it doesn't challenge them in a way that they want to invest more and more in it, right? Because effectively, guys, this is really about investing in ourselves. We've made bad investments, but we've made bad investments because the messaging that we got from the system was to follow a prescripted or prescribed plan that wasn't really something that we came up with in our own minds, or even if we did come up with it, we didn't think it through in all its implications. But now we're about finding ways out, being smart, strategic, and giving ourselves leverage, getting leverage on ourselves so that we can maneuver and get this upward mobility, or whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that you want, whether it is freedom, whether it is to transition to a different field, get out of debt, whatever the case may be. But this whole channel is really going to this series, shall I say, this series is going to focus on, effectively navigating the work trap, either escaping it or positioning yourself within it so that you are not hostage to it. And so we'll leave it there.